Remember the 80s in Australia? When kids rode bikes without helmets, school tuckshops were full of sweets and TV had a bedtime. Smoking was everywhere, payphones ruled the streets, and fashion was loud, bold, and unforgettable. Back then, it was normal. But today, absolutely unthinkable. Let's take a wild trip back in time to the things that made Aussie childhood crazy, free, and completely unforgettable. Driving without a seatbelt. Back then, seatbelts were more decoration than safety. People slipped them behind the seats just to silence the warning sound. Kids stood between the front seats, hands on the radio, laughing. Some even sat on laps and helped steer, while parents drove with one hand on the wheel and the other on a cigarette. Nobody thought about risk. The motto was simple: it'll be fine. Car rides felt like little adventures, wild and free. Today, the idea of a child unbuckled in a moving car feels insane. Seatbelts are law, child seats are standard, and safety has replaced that reckless kind of freedom. Being outside all day. Morning came and kids disappeared with their bikes. No phones, no trackers, no check-ins. Parents said, "Be home when it gets dark." That was the deal. Days stretched across fields, forests, playgrounds and alleys. Sometimes you built a hut, sometimes you vanished in a soccer match that lasted until the streetlights came on. No one knew exactly where you were, and no one worried too much. It was freedom in its purest form. Today, childhood means scheduled playdates, GPS watches, and constant supervision. That endless, unplanned wandering belongs to another world, a world that felt wide open and wonderfully unpredictable. Smoking everywhere. There was smoke in restaurants, smoke on trains, smoke in offices. People lit up in airplanes, at the doctor's office, even at home with the windows closed and kids in the back seat. It wasn't called passive smoking, it was just everyday life. Cigarettes were symbols of coolness, independence, even power. Stars smoked, teachers smoked, everyone did. Bars filled with blue haze, and nobody questioned it. Today, it's hard to imagine. Smoking bans are strict, ashtrays have disappeared, and even outdoors there are rules. But back then, the smell of smoke was everywhere, part of the air you breathed, as normal as breathing itself. Kids home alone. The key around the neck was a badge of independence. School ended and kids went straight home, often to an empty apartment. No babysitters, no after-school programs. Maybe a cold sausage in the fridge. Maybe cartoons on TV. Maybe a little sibling to watch. Rules were simple. Don't touch the stove. Don't open the door. Call the police if something happens. That was it. Childhood meant figuring it out on your own. Today, the thought of leaving a child alone for hours brings social workers to mind. But back then, it was normal. A bit lonely, yes, but also empowering. Corporal punishment as normal discipline. A slap on the fingers, a smack on the head, a teacher's ruler across the knuckles. At home, it might be a belt, a carpet beater, or just a quick hand. It wasn't called abuse, it was called teaching. Parents said, "It's for your own good." Many children grew up with the sting of punishment woven into daily life. Some thought it was fair, others lived in fear, but almost no one questioned it. Today, corporal punishment is illegal and unthinkable. Children have the right to grow up without violence. Back then, pain was mistaken for care, and obedience was carved into skin. Riding a bike without a helmet. Kids rode bikes everywhere without a helmet. The wind in their hair, bare arms and legs, racing down hills, dodging puddles. BMX bikes were freedom machines, a ticket to adventure. Helmets existed, but anyone who wore one was laughed at. It was heavy, ugly, and uncool. Parents shrugged. You'll be fine. Falls happened, knees scraped, elbows bruised. Those scars were badges of honour. Today, a kid without a helmet would be unthinkable, parents panicking, laws enforcing safety. But back then, danger was part of the thrill, and every ride was a lesson in courage, independence, and a little bit of recklessness that felt alive. Kids' movies and TV. Kids' TV was loud, messy, and sometimes scary. Shows like The Dukes of Hazzard or Inspector Gadget had villains, daring escapes, and slapstick chaos. Cartoons exploded with action. Heroes got hurt. Bad guys got up again. Afternoon movies might show cheeky jokes or suspense. No warnings, no advisory ratings. Kids absorbed it all, laughed, got spooked, and learned life lessons in between. Today, shows are filtered, age-rated, safe. Back then, the thrill was real. Stories were messy, funny, intense, and unforgettable. Television was a playground where imagination ran wild, shaping Aussie childhood in ways kids today rarely experience. Advertising for cigarettes. Cigarette ads were everywhere. Billboards on the highway, posters at the local servo, in mags, and on TV. Cowboys, surfers, yachts, and adventure promised independence and coolness. Kids knew brands like Winfield, Benson, and Hedges, or Peter Jackson better than their toys. Smoking was glamorous, part of the background, a rite of passage. Today, advertising is banned. TV and magazines are smoke-free, and kids grow up with health warnings. Back then, ads shaped the environment, whispered adulthood everywhere, and smoking seemed normal, even aspirational. It's hard to imagine now, but for Aussie kids, cigarettes were just another part of everyday life. Calling with a rotary phone. Rotary phones were everywhere, on kitchen walls, hallways, or in the lounge. Kids memorised numbers or scribbled them on scraps of paper. To call, you fished for coins, waited for a free line, dialed slowly, careful not to mess up. Long chats were rare, pricey, and serious. Calls were public, everyone could hear. Today, smartphones, unlimited calls, texting, video calls, connection is instant. Back then, a phone call was an event, a skill, and a mini-adventure. Patience and planning mattered. Each call carried tension, excitement, and satisfaction once completed. The rotary phone taught Aussie kids to plan, focus, and enjoy communication in a way that's almost vanished today. TV with a sign-off time. TV had a bedtime. 3 channels, ABC, SBS, and Channel 7 or 10. Sign-off meant a test pattern, static, and lights out. Families watched together. Missed shows meant waiting, maybe forever. No streaming, no on-demand, no endless options. Saturday nights were special. Everyone crowded in front of the set, sharing laughs, yelling over footy or game shows. Today, TV never sleeps. Streaming, binge-watching, 24/7. Back then, scheduled viewing made rituals, anticipation, and family moments. Missing a show was disappointment, not frustration. Sign-off gave closure, boundaries, and a sense of rhythm to Aussie life. Using leaded gasoline. Back in the 80s, every petrol station pumped leaded fuel. Dad filled the car while kids watched from the back seat, fascinated by the smell of petrol and the metallic hiss of the pump. It was normal. Nobody talked about pollution or long-term health effects. The world smelled of fuel, of movement, and of freedom. Today, leaded petrol is banned, stations are clean, and environmental awareness is everywhere. Back then, refueling was part of life, a shared family moment, even a tiny adventure. Kids absorbed the sights, sounds, and smells, feeling connected to the car, the road, and the adventure ahead. School milk, sweets, and playground snacks. School days included a small glass of warm milk, sometimes slightly sour, and a packet of sugary treats, from the tuck shop. Kids swapped lollies and chocolate bars, shared fizzy drinks, and no one worried about sugar or allergies. Lunchboxes were simple: white bread with Vegemite, jam, or a sausage roll. Outside, playgrounds were rough, running, climbing, getting dirty. Today, health regulations control snacks, allergies are managed strictly, and tuck shops are mostly salad bars. Back then, kids learned independence, sharing, and how to survive a day full of sugar highs and playground adventures. It was messy, noisy, and wonderfully carefree. 80s fashion. Fashion in the 80s was loud, bold, and fearless. Neon colours, shoulder pads, high-top sneakers, tracksuits, and oversized jackets were everywhere. Boys sported mullets, girls had crimped hair and industrial-strength hairspray. Accessories were over the top: headbands, sweatbands, belts, and quirky sunglasses. It didn't always make sense, but it made a statement. Today, fashion is more subtle, carefully curated, and regulated by trends. Back then, style was personal, expressive, and fun. Aussie kids wore what they liked, copied pop stars like Kylie Minogue or Michael Hutchence, and didn't worry about Instagram likes. It was loud, creative, and unapologetically themselves. Payphones. Payphones were everywhere, on street corners, in train stations, outside shops. Kids carried coins, memorised phone numbers, and queued to make a call. Dialing was slow, you had to turn the rotary carefully. Misdialed numbers meant starting over. Long calls were rare, expensive, and serious. Privacy? Minimal. Everyone could hear you, sometimes even joined in. Today, mobile phones, unlimited calls, and texting are standard. Back then, making a call was a skill, an adventure, a lesson in patience. It created suspense, excitement, and small victories, teaching kids the value of communication before instant messaging became normal. And that's a wrap on our trip back to the 80s. Things that were totally normal back then would never fly today. Which of these did you remember from your childhood? Drop a comment, share your favourite 80s memory, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more time travel adventures. Because one thing's for sure, the 80s were loud, wild, and unforgettable, and some of that freedom we'll never forget.